Hey, what's up guys? In this video, I'm going to show you how to build a quick and easy B2B lead generation system using Google's incredible new Agentic IDE Antigravity. Now, this is a live build, so this means that I'll be taking you from identifying the keyword, creating the lead magnet, building the site using Antigravity, getting it ranking in Google, and have it start generating leads all within 24 hours. Trust me, this is not one that you'll want to miss. Now, as always, if you want the exact prompts, the actual framework that I'm going to be using to create the site and the lead magnet and all that good stuff today, then simply sign up to the link in the description, navigate your way to that first link, copy and paste this exact prompt directly into Antigravity. And finally, if you love videos such as this, then please subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, let's get into the video. So to kick it off, I'm going to go right from the start and ask ChatGPT to suggest some audits, free tools, giveaways that we could use as a lead magnet that can be the basis of this lead generation system. So it's given me a few here: AI visibility audit, B2B SEO growth scorecard, competitor content gap report, ICP messaging alignment, a Google Ads audit, LinkedIn audit. So there's quite a few here, albeit they're pretty niche. We've also got B2B SEO ROI calculator. I think the possibilities are relatively endless, right? I'm going to keep this super straightforward and lean into the B2B SEO side. So what I'm going to do, jump into Ahrefs, but you can use any keyword research tool. Just have a look for B2B SEO audit. So in the UK, there's 150 searches a month. In the US, there's 600 with a global volume of roughly 1.1K. So this looks pretty good. As usual, I'm just going to check out the SERP. And what I'm doing is just checking the intent, right? So we've got a service page, we've got an EMD there, we've got a how-to guide, we've got a blog, how-to, some videos, we've got an actual SEO audit tool, we've got a service page. So this kind of tells us that people are searching for different things when they put a B2B SEO audit into Google's search bar. So that's great. So we have an opportunity to rank for this. The next thing we're going to do is take this exact keyword and aim to register it as a domain on GoDaddy. Now, when we register a keyword as the exact domain, this is called an EMD. And basically, EMDs are still one of the fastest ways to rank for a very targeted, very specific keyword. And the reason for this is because Google, with an EMD, doesn't know if this is a navigational search, i.e., they don't know if someone is generally Googling that keyword to try and find a solution from a list of providers, or whether it's a branded search. And actually, the keyword is the name of a business or a brand that the user is trying to find. So in this case, when we go to register B2B SEO audit.co.uk, when Google sees that domain and then someone subsequently Googles B2B SEO audit, Google initially doesn't know whether someone is actually looking for an SEO audit of their B2B site, or they're looking for B2B SEO audit.co.uk. And it's this uncertainty that we essentially aim to exploit in the early days when Google's still sort of figuring out what to do with our website. So what I'm going to do is go through and register this domain. So I typically use GoDaddy. You can use any other domain provider. And what you're going to do is literally just add in the exact match domain, so the keyword without spaces, of course, without hyphens or underscores, into the search bar, and then depending on where you're from, .co.uk, .com, and then hit search. Now, preempting the video, I have, of course, already registered the domain. I mean, it'd be a pretty short video if I didn't, right? And once you've finished registering that domain, make sure you avoid going through the website builder that GoDaddy seems to force you through and forces you to create a site in their infrastructure. And this is where the fun starts to happen. So if you type Google Antigravity directly into Google, you'll find a landing page like this. And what you need to do is hit download in the top right-hand corner. When you've got your domain, then you need to navigate to the Antigravity landing page. You can simply do that by putting Antigravity into Google, clicking the top right-hand corner, which is download, and then downloading the version based on your operating system. Once that's done, I'm going to go through the usual install process for a new application. Now, when you first install Antigravity, you'll need to connect it with your Google associated email address, and then you'll be met with an interface that looks like this. On the right-hand side, we've got our agent workflow, and on the left-hand side, we've got the option to open a folder. Now, so websites are made up of a bunch of files and folders. Now, when we use Antigravity, which is an integrated development environment, what this allows us to do is to create those files and folders locally on our machine. Now, because Antigravity is one of the first agentic IDEs, this means that it essentially has AI natively built in to the editor. So what does this mean? Well, this basically means that we can use AI to create these files and folders. Once we've created those files and folders locally on our machine, we can then push them to something called GitHub, which is basically a cloud storage system for websites. So it allows us to host, or I should say store, our files and folders in the cloud, meaning if we want to, these files and folders can then be free to anyone that wishes to take a look at them. We can then from GitHub auto deploy these files and folders into a hosting provider. So in our example, we'll be using something called Versal, but you can use Cloudflare, you can use pretty much whatever you want. So what I'm going to do is take you through the process of building these files and folders, essentially this lead generation system, and then deploying everything directly from Antigravity. Now, there's a couple of things that I do like about Antigravity in particular is it has a native integration with a whole host of MCP servers. An MCP is a bit like a toolbox. So for example, if we wanted to connect a database such as Supabase and MongoDB, so for example, if we were storing email addresses, if we were storing data, we can essentially natively integrate to the likes of Supabase. If you scroll through these, I'm sure you'll recognize a number of these. So we've got Stripe, we've got Notion, we've got Perplexity, we've got PayPal. So this just means that we can connect to an MCP far easier than we could previously, where we'd have to go to the systems, grab the API keys and sort of navigate our way around there. The other thing that I like about Antigravity is that it's relatively autonomous. So whenever we create those files and folders on our local machine, the system itself will essentially go through that lead generation system by itself to verify that everything is working, which is super cool. And hopefully I'll give you an example of what that looks like. And finally, because it's an agentic IDE, it actually comes with models already preloaded into the workspace. So this means that we can essentially start prompting and we're good to go. We don't actually need to connect the model via a terminal, which is typically what we'd have to do with the likes of Cursor or VS Code, for example. Now, if we did want to use another model, then we can quite simply go to the terminal and then set it up as we would if we were in Cursor. But for the sake of this video, I'm not going to be doing that. So to kick it off, I'm going to create a new folder. Let's call this folder B2B Lead Generation System. What I'm going to do is open it. Now, everything we create in Antigravity will save locally in that folder. Now, what I've already prepared is the framework that you need to just copy and paste directly into your workspace to get up and running. And if you sign up to the link in the description, you can get free access to this. So I'm literally just going to copy and paste this, and then I'll walk you through what's going on with it. So I've pasted the everything in that Notion board into the workspace. Now make sure you've got planning switched on. And this is a really good rule of thumb to follow, right? So whenever you give a big task to an AI model, you want to make sure that it's always in planning mode. This is because the model will essentially take that big task and they will break it up into lots of smaller tasks. And essentially it will create a system whereby it needs to complete that small task before moving on to the next ones. If you just ask to essentially build straight away, it will try and do the whole thing all at once. And there won't be any dependencies on, say, step one to complete before step two. So this means that no doubt this happens every time. Something will break along the way and then you'll be going back upstream trying to figure out what it is and repair it. The additional thing to this is that this will obviously cost you in tokens, whereas planning is super cheap, okay? So this is much cheaper to do, and it gives the AI model a bit more of a system and a workflow to work through. Let me show you what that looks like. So I'm literally just going to hit the prompt, hit send, and then what it's going to ask me to do is answer 6 different questions so that it can define the workflow define the lead generation system that we're trying to build. Okay, so before we go through the 8 questions that it needs to kick off the project, on the left-hand side, it's given us the task list. So the initial bit is the project initialization, which will come from the answers that I provided here. It's then going to create the lay the foundation. So this is pretty much understanding what we're trying to achieve and then making sure that it can connect to the external tools that we wish to connect to. It's then going to go through and design and build the pages. It's then going to write some copy for us on this landing page. It's then going to run some SEO tests, and then it's going to give us a bit of a walkthrough as to how to get it live onto the site. Now, let me just pull these questions over. So it needs answers to these 8 questions before it can determine its next step. So the first one is target keyword, then the ideal customer, the audit type, the user input type, what data goes where, the proof points, design direction, and integration. So let me just go through these one by one. Okay, so I've filled out the answers to these questions. So the target keyword is B2B SEO audit. The ideal customer is the CMO marketing manager of a 50 to 500 person B2B SaaS scale up. Number 3, the audit types and SEO audit. The user inputs, this will be the website domain. Number 5, what data gets shown. So how this is built is the user will get a snapshot of the audit results, and then they give their email to release the rest of the results. Now, I will add a huge caveat into this, that this will be a very watered down version of this system for the sake of the video. So you'll see that the SEO results are going to be super high level. They are not really going to offer that much value, but I just want to show you the end-to-end system, but I'll come on to that. Number 6, the proof points. So Session Media, we're a B2B specialized performance marketing agency. We've won multiple awards. We've worked with over 100 B2B clients, and we're part owned by Europe's largest B2B data provider, Expandy Group. Number 7, so design direction. And I will come on to how you can improve this if you wish. But basically just said, use a default B2B SaaS landing page, ensure I can add the domain in to be audited above the fold. I'm going to also add, really think about CRO, information below the fold, should look really nice, smart, and make me want to get on audit from the landing page. And then number 8 is the integrations needed. And the reason it needs this is because it needs a system, it needs an API to call on to complete the actual audit process. Now, for this, I'm a huge fan of using something called Apify. Now, Apify is essentially a host of different types of web crawlers. So if you come onto apify.com, you can see down here, they've got a TikTok scraper, a Google Maps scraper, Instagram scraper, Facebook post scraper. They've pretty much got a scraper for most of the commonly known tools. And what I'm going to look for is specifically an SEO audit tool. So if I come into my console, what I'm going to do is jump into the Apify store. I'm just going to search for SEO. I'm just going to put SEO audits, keep it quite broad. And as you'll see, there's plenty available here. I'm going to have a look at this one here, SEO audit tool. We've got a cost in the top right-hand corner here. And then when you scroll down, you can see the inputs that are required to activate it. If you come into information, it then gives a breakdown as to the outputs that it can generate, basically. So for the sake of the video, this all looks absolutely fine. So now if I want to run this, I come onto the right-hand side, I select API endpoints, and then I scroll down, and what I do is I identify where the run actor synchronously and gets dataset items. And then what I do is I copy this, and I'm going to paste this directly into Antigravity. So I've just added my Apify URL down here. The next thing I need is an email system. I just like to use FormSpree. It's free. It's very easy to get started. For the sake of the video, I'm going to use that. So if I come into FormSpree, I'm just going to copy the ID, jump back into Antigravity. Once we've provided all that, we're pretty much good to get started. So now I'm just going to hit send. You also notice that I've configured the model down here to be Gemini 3 Pro High, which means that we'll probably get less usage than if we're using Gemini 3, the Flash version, but the quality of the output should be a little bit better, basically. And of course, you can connect your own API keys to whatever model you want. using this IDE. But for the sake of the video, I'm just going to show you a completely free way to set up this lead generation system. Now, as it goes through building the system using the information, we just need to make sure that we pretty much accept anything that comes through. Because we're asking it to scrape an API, we do need to set up or install Python. But don't worry about doing it manually. Of course, the system will do it all for us. I think I've also mentioned as well, but this SEO audit scraper is going to be very high level, right? It's not really going to give that much depth. If you want an actual SEO audit of your site, then drop it in the comments or DM me on LinkedIn or something, and I will take a proper look at your website from an SEO standpoint. So yeah, don't hold me to this. Do not hold me to the standards of the output of the crawler. Okay, so phase one is complete, and we can see that it's done the ICP and a flow define. It's tested the Apify integration. It's given us a success message. If we actually come into the actor runs, so for this SEO audit tool, we can see that this is actually just run. So the system's actually gone through and tested the API, and it's used example.com, which is pretty cool. So we know that it's working as it goes through this build, and it's not hallucinating in that sense. Now, it's also told us the framework. So this is a Vite and React. Now, I will be honest, Vite is not amazing for SEO. It will be fine for what we're trying to achieve, but I would not build your whole business website on a Vite framework because typically Google crawlers can have trouble accessing the content within the framework. Styling vanilla CSS, yeah, it seems fine. And then a couple of core components, yeah. So we're just going to proceed and accept all the changes to the files. We can see on the left-hand side, it's given us the phase 2 as well. Okay, so phase 2, engineering the pages, is complete. And as you can see, the system itself is actually opening localhost itself, and it's going to run through end to end the whole process to make sure that it's working. So I'm completely hands off with this. It will notify me if it needs some input, which is usually an acceptance somewhere. So I'm just going to confirm. And if I click view, we can actually see what it's starting to do on the left-hand side here as well, which is pretty cool. So as you can see, it's actually gone through the process. It's done an example audit for example.com. And then it's asked me to put my email in, which is exactly what the process should be. Just going to put an email in. And then what this does is it opens up the rest of the audit results. So this process is working exactly as we intended. They've even added like a nice book consultation button at the end here, which we could take to social media, another call to action, or point them directly to a Calendly booking form, jump on a call with us or something like that. But for the sake of this is awesome. This is complete, the very straightforward step by step. What I'm now going to do is just test this with my own domain. So let's put in sessionmedia.com. Analyze results. And in theory, what we should see is this run actually happening in Apify. So I'm going to navigate to Apify, and this should be, yep, sessionmedia.com. So that is literally correctly called the Apify actor. And we've got the outcomes along here. And on the left-hand side here, you can actually see the process that it went through to generate the outcome. So it's actually recorded it. So it's done the example.com. Then it's loaded up the scoring with the small window asking us to put our email in. So this is the beauty of an Agentic IDE. It's super hands-off. We just kind of give it the framework that we want and we let it run with it. We let it figure it all out, which is awesome. If I jump back into the local host, just have a look, we can see that we've got the run here. I'm just going to add an email in to reveal my results, and we've got all the results down here. Now, of course, we can expand on this, we can improve on it. There's plenty that we can improve on. I'm also just going to check my forms through submissions, and I can see that this one has come through successfully, which is awesome. So the actual system works. Now, what I'm also going to show you is how we can work on some of the styling. I'm not going to spend ages on it just for the sake of the video, but just to sort of show you what you can do. So the beauty with this is we can start foldering pretty much anything we want the system to reference. So for example, we can create a folder called, I don't know, landing page inspiration. And you can pretty much talk to that folder specifically in the files within that folder and create a separate framework for things like design, for example. So again, this is why using an Agentic IDE is awesome, because you can just start speaking to the individual folders to get to the outcome that you wish. Now, for the sake of the video, I'm not going to go through that process, and instead I'm going to go through to the next step, which is deploying this to GitHub. So it's one step before getting it live on the web, which will be super exciting. I think as we're here, I'm not going to go down a design rabbit hole, but let's bulk it out a little bit. So what I've done is I've just asked it to bulk out some of the content a little bit. So we want a bit more substance to the page. I've also asked it to create a privacy page, data usage page, and a cookie policy as well. Even though we're not actually tracking anything from an analytics point of view, I just want to get these added to this landing page before we send it to GitHub. Okay, so the system has made some changes. It's automatically opened my local host, and we can see that it's added a couple of blocks down here. It's also added some content around things like data usage and stuff. So again, super minimal. What I'm going to do is I've decided just to tidy up the styling a little bit, just so it looks a bit better. The marketing person, we just can't let a site looking like this go live, unfortunately. So what I've done is I've just screenshotted a site that I quite like the look of. It's at least a little bit better than what we've got at the moment. I'm going to come back into Antigravity. And what I've done is I've uploaded those screenshots directly into the agent prompt window, and I'm just asking it if it can replicate essentially the UI, the styling, and the overall look and feel of our site based on the inspiration that I've given it. Let's see how it ends up. Okay, cool. This is still working. And what it's done is it's just given it a purple texture, which is cool. So I think what I'm going to do is just add maybe another sort of content block. So just ask it to move around this flow a little bit. And then I think I'll call it there and start deploying to GitHub. I'm sure you guys have got your head firmly into IDEs and using AI and things. And you and I both know this is a lot of back and forth, right? We rarely will one-shot something that looks absolutely amazing. So this is all part of the fun, it's all part of the learning experience. I tell myself that anyway. So one really cool thing about Antigravity is when it's made the changes, I said that it runs autonomously. So it will go through essentially like the lead gen system and find issues. So I can see as I scroll up that it's actually identified an issue in the console logs, and it's asking me to confirm a change that it wants to make. So instead of us having to go through, inspect the element, and then pass that error into the system itself will actually run through it, identify that there's an error, and then essentially fix itself, which is super cool. So an example here is I'm seeing a blank page, but the console screams about an error in the app component. Now I see the user requested a trajectory summary and edited other files. Seems I have something concrete to work with now. And if I pull the local host back into view, you can actually see that there is a blank page there. So, it's essentially looking at the domain in the local host, identifying that there's an error and going through that feedback loop of trying to resolve as we go through. And all I'm doing is I'm sitting here and essentially just confirming everything. And this is also a great lesson for anyone that is in the YouTube game, that if you go to film a tutorial and you tell yourself to not bother with the design elements and to keep the process nice and simple, that really you should listen to your own advice before deciding to do a 180 and going through that design process, which really probably doesn't add that much to this video, but I couldn't put a video out to the world with a website looking like trash, unfortunately. And hopefully it'll all be worth it. I'm live building this, so let's see how it ends up. Okay, cool. So it's finished fixing, improving the system, and it's given us a bit of a playback as to the process it's gone through. Now, this is obviously looking much, much better, but I need to make some changes. We've still got WOPE clone up there. We've still got an unlinked resource pricing login for some reason, and we've lost our H1. We're so close. We're so, so close. But one thing I also wanted to add was this has also all been done on zero cost. I've not had to implement or pay for anything to get up and running with this. And really, lead generation systems, website building has pretty much gone to zero, which is crazy. Imagine thinking that was the case even 3 or 4 years ago. Okay, so I've now just said this looks awesome, but let's replace the logo in the corner and obviously remove the unlinked heading sitting at the top. And then I think we're good to start deploying. Awesome, it's made the changes. So it's removed that header. We've got B2B SEO audit at the top here. We've got B2B SEO audit in the H1. This looks much smarter. Again, by no means, would I say it's the finished article. If I was to spend more time on this, I think we could get this looking pretty good. Let's just make sure that this still works as well, because crucially, that's the most important point. So I'm just running sessionmedia.com, and what I'm going to do is that runs. I'm going to jump back into Appify, and what we should see, as we can here, is that actor running. And we've now got a success message, sessionmedia.com. If I then pull the local host back in, we can see that this is pulled the score as per, and it's still in our formatting, which is awesome. Now I'm just going to add my email in, and this still gives me the rest of my results. We've actually seen that we've got a little bit of, we've got a little bit more content here. Again, still, this would still be probably the worst regarded SEO audit I've ever seen, just hands up, but the process works, the system works. Let me just double check Formsbury to make sure that that email has landed into the CRM. And awesome is this one up at the top here. It is 1717. So the whole system works. We're very close now to getting this live. So the next step is we need to deploy it directly into GitHub. So what I'm now going to say is, okay, this is awesome. Let's deploy to GitHub. Okay, cool. This is now ready. And this is probably one of the few manual things that we'll need to do. So if you've never signed up to GitHub before, then quite simply just Google GitHub and select the first result. Come over on the left-hand side and select repositories. What we're going to do is create a new repository and then essentially just give the system the GitHub URL and ask it to auto deploy the code directly into that repository. Now, the eagle-eyed of you will notice that it's actually told me to do it in a different way, but I'm going to try and make this as super simple and hands-off as possible. So I'm actually not going to follow this. So I'm going to give it a name, B2B SEO audit. I'm going to make this private, and then I'm going to create the repository, and this will create a URL that we can put straight into Antigravity. So I'm going to copy that, I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to say, please deploy the site to this URL. Cool, and this is now said that it's live. So let's open the URL, and what we should see, there it is, all our files and folders that we've just built is now available in that GitHub repository. Now, the second to last step is to now get this into a hosting environment. And I mentioned at the start that we use Versal. Versal before, if you just Google Versal and then select the first domain, we will be using a pro account, which is something like $20 a month, but you can also use a free option as well. I think Cloudflare is free for all its issues at the moment. So you don't necessarily need to use this hosting provider. Now, of course, I've got plenty of deployments in Versal, but what I do like about this is that I can auto push my GitHub repository into Versal pretty much within like one click. So if you come over to the right-hand side here, go to add new and go to projects. So what you can do is essentially add your GitHub account. This will then allow Versal to have a look for new repositories. It will then list them here. And what we can do quite simply is just import them. So you can see at the top here, my B2B SEO audit repository that I've just, as of 2 minutes ago, put into GitHub. I can quite simply select import. All of this looks okay, and I'm quite simply just going to hit deploy. And what this will do, will create a Versal domain, like a B2B SEO audit.versal.app, something like that. So we can actually see it outside of our local host on a public facing domain, which will be pretty cool. And of course, the last bit to this will be syncing it up with the B2B SEO audit.co.uk that we registered right at the start of the video. Okay, so this has been done. Let's go to the dashboard. As you can see, we've got our project here, we've got our domains here. So if I select this, we can see that this is now live on the versal.app domain. Now, to get this live on our own custom domain, what we need to do is come into domains. We need to go to add existing, and we just need to add the domain without HTTPS or www or anything like that. We just need to add the domain. So in this case, B2B SEO audit.co.uk, and we need to hit save. Now, what you'll notice is we will have a non-www dot and a www dot. So Versal automatically will redirect the non-www dot to the www dot version. But more importantly, what we need to do is go into the DNS settings of GoDaddy, where our domain sits at the moment, and switch up the A record for this value and the CNAME record for this value here. So if I go into GoDaddy, and I'm just going to go into my products, going to go into B2B SEO audit.co.uk and go into the DNS records. And what I'm going to do is swap out this A record and this CNAME record for the records that Versal have given me. So the A record is this and the CNAME record is this. And then what we can do once that's been done is we can manually refresh both of these until Versal recognizes those records in the original DNS. And once both of these have been ticked, we should be able to open it up, and our site is now live. And let me just pull this out of here. You can see that this is live on b2bseo.co.uk. Let's run through the system just to make sure it works. Sessionmedia.com. Awesome stuff. So we're getting the same score, which looks pretty good. I've also got my email box here. So I'm just going to add an email into this to reveal my results. And as per the staging environments, we can see that all our information is now here. Let me just do one final check just to make sure that the emails landed into FormSpree. 1731, that's us. So this has now successfully worked. That site is live and available on the web. The final part to this is speeding up the rate at which Google index it and subsequently can show it to the world. So there's two tools that I like for this. The first one is Index Me Now that I've used on other videos. More recently, I've also been using Prime Index, which seems to be a little bit quicker and a little bit cheaper. So let me just walk you through Prime Index. So I've just signed up with a fresh email account so you can see what it looks like. Head into my projects, go to new projects, project name. I'm just going to call this B2B SEO audit. And then what you need to do is add your URLs line by line. So I'm literally going to do is just paste B2B SEO audit.co.uk and hit save projects. And that's pretty much it. That is all you need to do. Now, from experience, Prime Indexer tends to index URLs sort of within hours and not days. So by the time this comes out, you should be able to see B2B SEO audit ranking in the Google SERPs. Both of these tools should mean that your URL is available sort of within one day, in many cases in hours, and available to the web. I'm really curious to know how you guys get on with this. So as always, please leave a comment below. If you do like videos such as this, then please subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, I will see you next time.